No, ma'am, we can't hear you.
बाकी लोग ज्वाइन ये करो, लॉग ऑफ करो, यहाँ का जितने भी लोगों ने किया है लॉग इन ऑफ कर दो। किया? हाँ। हेलो, आर वी ऑडिबल?
Yes, sir.
एम आई ऑडिबल?
Yes, sir.
आवाज आवाज क्यों नहीं आ रही है?
Sir, you're audible.
यहाँ तो आवाज बात कर रहा हूँ ना मैं, कोई बात तो कर ले। हेलो,
Hello, sir, you are audible.
We can hear
वेरी
you.
गुड। एम
Sir,
आई
you're audible.
नाउ, एम आई ऑडिबल
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
क्लियरली?
Yes, sir.
देयर इज नो ग्लिच इन ऑडियो?
No, no.
Loud and sufficient enough?
Yes, sir.
Is it okay?
Yes,
Audio
sir.
is okay?
Yes, sir.
Good. Just check if you are able to see the board. Are you able to see the board?
Yes, we can see it.
So whatever is written, is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Good. So we can continue this lecture. Anuradha ma'am will continue. I am not doing. Okay. So do you want to take one back after this? कितना एप्ट रिएक्शन है उसका?
ऑनलाइन लेक्चर नहीं चलती भी ट्रेन में सर।
यहीं बैठ जाओ ना।
पानी भरेगा अब ले जाने में बैठ जाता है।
हाँ।
Am I audible?
Here you are audible.
Yes, ma'am.
But when I go there,
You check.
am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thanks, sir. Thank you, sir. Take time of his work he has invested on us. Thank you. So, what is the time? We start at 11? नहीं बाकी लोग कुछ लोग उन्हीं मुझे पता है कोई ट्रेन से इधर उधर हो गए
मैम तभी 17 मिनट में कैसे पहुंचेंगे?
Now he wants to leave early, so he's
नहीं उनको जाना है
मैम पर फिर मैं अटेंड ही नहीं कर पाऊंगा, तो मैं आया हूँ तो बैठ हाँ
Give me 5-10 minutes. बाकी बच्चे भी join करेंगे. How many have joined? All are there. 13. Tell them to join the fast. You can send a message. Am I audible, students?
Yes, ma'am. Also, ma'am, Riya is on the way. She will be coming soon.
It's all because I decided to take it. Anyway, next time onward, I will not venture out and do an online class, but then you all should not get upset that it's an online. Because I know in online, 50% of what we teach is. Yeah. So, what we can do is, we can have the online lecture, finish off with the syllabus if you all have doubts in the next lecture. Yeah. I had specifically messaged that you can just, I have said that you can just leave it and I'm going to repeat what I have done in the previous class. So how many more can join?
10 people more.
How many are stuck in the we know about program, we know about creation process. My class will get over by the time she reaches the monthly tutor. Tell her to take an about term and log in.
Someone needs us to come. She might just travel.
So let tell her leave it. Just leave it.
Ma'am, she's busy.
Riya, if you are stuck on the way, just leave it and go. Come on, people.
Ma'am, admin there.
Yeah.
No, ma'am.
No, there.
Ma'am, this
Right
side,
side,
right?
right. No, admin.
Admin.
You can check if Riya is on the call. No, she's not. No, she's walking up.
आपको पेमेंट की ज़्यादा लेक्चर देते
You know, students, the portion that I am teaching now, this is being used in almost all central banks. Like the one which will come in module 2, almost all central banks are using it. And it varies from bank to bank, what is their objective, what they want to do, and all those things. Accordingly, all your equations change. But suppose you are interested in going ahead with something of this kind in future, then you can actually start looking at the working papers of various central banks. I can give you some references if you are interested. Screen required है क्या? Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll take another 10 minutes and then start the class.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
She is not videoing.
Hello, Riya. If you are finding stranger, I told you no, don't worry. Okay, you come in that case, but don't panic if you take time to reach from the railway station to the university. Don't panic. I am taking an online class, but if there is any problem, we'll clear it with you. Okay? How will she go back? You know what? If I would have said no, that I will not take a class, it would have become writing study. That has been like, all those minds which have been coming Vikram and Vikrala to go up. It's that. So can I start? We will say yes. So I'll do one thing. I'll start with the class because no point in waiting for it to be 11 because after me, then Koti sir will also take the class.
Only if people agree.
Online. He's taking the class online. After not sure or
No, it's for slot of the week.
I know. He said ऐसा है तो मैं यहाँ पे यार 1 बजे का क्लास Then
I am
it's-
okay with it. I don't know about it.
आपने जो बोला था कितनी वर्ष बोला
Option ideally बाकी सब लोग
आइडिया देना आरबीआई को फाइनेंस को कोटे से को लेके
प्लीज मेरा नाम ले नहीं पाया ना But you know what? It really matters because you don't get this time you have no gaps between exams. So the sooner we finish the syllabus, the better for you because it's slack week. But we don't have a study week. Study week is there.
हाँ
Then between the exams we don't have yeah. But the exams are not 2 weeks complete. So you have how many papers?
6
4 papers. 4 papers. 4 then our programming is the 6 है ना? 6 subjects but 4 written papers. So maybe you will get, but the plan is not to stretch it beyond the point.
without most of them will not pass.
No, I understand. That's very genuine. Yes, I'm taking. Yeah.
आप ऐसा मत करो एक बार
अभी
खत्म हो गया आपको
अभी की पढ़ना है we should not
तो ये चॉइस है तो क्यों ना ये चॉइस होती है
People are still joining, na? They'll think at least till 11.
option will by default.
It is there. If I share this email with you all, then you all can get in directly. ये इतने सारे स्क्रीन्स क्यों दिख रहे हैं?
इंफिनिटी पैराडाइज है वो देखा है कि कितने लोगों
The
ने
thing is, if I start my class, I will not be able to see who all want to log in.
Maybe on laptop you can see that, and then you can teach on.
प्लीज इधर आओ तेरा के बैठ इधर तो ना एडिट कर बट मेरी आवाज नहीं जाएगी जाएगी नो दिस इज नॉट वी केप्ट इट फॉर द माइक so I am hoping
एक करके आ रहे हैं
back to COVID days. Tomorrow morning it will finish like this. In advance and technical it will be online. And we come then.
वो प्रॉब्लम है ना कि कलर में जो होगा तो लग हो रही है मैं प्रेडिक्ट करना
अभी वो अपने
दोस्त को ऐसा
नहीं पर ऐसा ऐसे vacation कीजिए, ऐसे नहीं कि थोड़ा सा pressure हो गया।
This was a very so because I
Now see, it has settled. It's not a
It is settled silently. Up and down. Yeah. And there's a high tide at 3 o'clock. Yeah.
And why are you sitting?
अभी क्या करें?
ऑनलाइन
में अटेंड नहीं कर पाए। कुछ नहीं मैम,
It's
एक दिन
saying
तो
that अभी जो है बाद में-
It is a prediction. No, but you know what? That if you don't believe the prediction, it is that's a forecast. So I think now people are not asking for logging in. If there's someone and he or she says, then tell me I will. So students, I'm starting the lecture. Can you all hear?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Okay. So we'll do one thing. I'll briefly sum up what I did in my previous class, and then we'll go further. Okay. So initially, when we were, in the first model, when we were talking about the consumer or the household, like we had these two sectors in our economy. We had a household and we had a firm. And we used the real business cycle model to actually we actually used the real business cycle model only to tell that policy is ineffective. That was the reason why, and only technology shocks impact the economy. Or money, that is the monetary policy or fiscal policy, is neutral. Neutral means it is ineffective in the long run. So we had used a basic two-sector model, and we had shown all those relationships in a general equilibrium framework. And then I had started with this new model, a very small model which is very similar to what we did in the previous class, but we have something else to show over here. So now we have already shown in the new classical setup that these models. Yeah. So in the new classical setup, I have already shown that policy is ineffective. Now my next purpose is to find out So what I'm trying to show over here in this next model or a new model which I have over here, which is going to start, like I'll start in a bit. So in this model, I'm trying to find out what determines growth or what determines the output or what are the determinants of consumption. Okay. Now, if I have to do this, I have to
that's the
Someone wants to join.
So if I have to do this, I have to answer this question as to what determines output. We've been studying about various theories in the past. You must have done it in development economics, where you have studied various theories talking about, there should be a big push, there should be some kind of, shifting of labor from agriculture sector to the manufacturing sector, industrial sector, and all those things. But over here, I'm just going to show you in a basic new Keynesian model, how things are different, and what determines growth. So if I were to follow the Solow model, I would have looked up into the neoclassical growth theory, in which what determines growth or how growth is determined is not the way we will look at now. So basically what happens is, in the new classical, neoclassical version, what was happening is you had an equation like this: yt is equal to Cp plus IT. Now you have to always remember that whenever I'm not adding anything to this beyond this point, it's a closed economy. I had mentioned this in the previous class. And then I said I want to look at all this in terms of per capita terms. So suppose I say that NT is the population at any given a constant population at any point of time, then I will have my equation as IT. We've done this in the previous class and you have taken it down also. So this is my basic national income identity equation, which means I'm just trying to say that my income is depending upon my consumption and the investment. But everything is in per capita term and I'm just talking about this. So output, if I'm talking in terms of output, I will say output of a firm, which is always a function of something like f of k, right? Now going by the traditional story, demand is equal to supply, f of k should be equal to yt. This is the demand side, this is the supply side. Okay, I spoke about a production function, which was a typical production function, a well-behaved production function, where I was saying that, f dash k is greater than 0, that is marginal productivity of capital is positive in the beginning, and the second order derivative is equal to 0. As k increases, what will happen? F of k goes towards 0. Okay, limit k tends to infinity, f dash k tends to 0, which means what? As capital increases, the productivity of capital goes down. Now, having done all these things, we also came up with this equation. If you remember, I said that delta kt plus 1 is equal to IT minus delta kt. Now, this is a very important expression. What does it say? At any given point of time, in the beginning of the time period, what is the change in the capital stock? This is the equation for capital stock. And I am saying my production function depends upon this capital stock over here. So this expression has a lot of meaning and it has a lot of implications. How do I use this? I can just write this as kt plus 1 minus kt is equal to IT minus delta kt. So we've written down this part of the expression also. Let me take kt to the right hand side. So I have kt plus 1 is equal to IT minus delta kt plus kt. So this gives me equal to IT minus plus 1 minus delta kt. So I have an expression for kt plus 1, I have an expression for delta kt plus 1. Now these we will be using on and off in our entire model, which is going to come. Yes? Yes. One second. I have to come back to that expression here. So basically what happens is, if I'm investing today, if I make an investment today, tomorrow morning it is going to give rise to a change in my capital stock. Right? So what is the change in the capital stock? This capital stock, change in capital stock will depend upon my investment. Now I over here is investment per capita. So investment per capita minus delta KT. Okay, minus delta KT. What is delta over here? Delta is depreciation. In a very simple language, we had this AC which was working over here, for which investment was made long back. It was used, reused, and it conked off one day. So the depreciation was happening, and so the investment value goes on decreasing. That is what is here in terms of machinery when you are looking at the firm sector. So we have this expression which is based on like standard equation which we use in macroeconomics. Then what did I say? Change in KT plus 1 means what? What is the difference between the current KT and the KT in the previous period? KT minus 1 and KT, or like that, like this. So this will be equal to this. It's just a simple, expansion of the map. For me, it is important to write it in this form also because I will be using this equation somewhere, and in some places I will be using this equation. Okay, now this gives me what is IT. So IT will be KT plus 1 minus delta KT. Okay, we have used this in my previous class. So I am just directly writing. So small yt, this is small yt is equal to it plus ct. Which means this is equal to what? This is equal to kt plus 1 minus delta kt plus ct. But this is here. Yeah, so this is my equation which I have got. For those who are not here, this looks confusing. Right. Okay, now you can see that my YT is in terms of capital and consumption. What is this going to be equal to? This will be equal to the output. So technically, this is my resource constraint equation. Why? Because my output will depend upon how much consumption is happening and how much capital formation is happening in the economy. This is called as the resource constraint equation. Why resource constraint equation? Because this is my demand side. YT is my demand side, and this is demand has to be equal to supply. That is what they try in general equilibrium. So what the households ask for, what the resources give, and what is the final output. So this is going to depend upon. So let me write my resource constraint equation formally as equal to small ct plus kt plus 1 minus delta kt. Is it clear till here, students? I have repeated this. I had done it in my last class also. But it is important for you to understand one very important thing in this expression, and that is the time subscript. You can see I have two time subscripts over here, two different time subscripts. One is t plus 1, the second one is t. So what does that mean? It is a dynamic equation. This means it's a dynamic equation. My resource constraint is dynamic. Now this is a function. Left hand side is a function, and on the right hand side I have two different time periods. This becomes a non-linear resource constraint equation. If you try to plot this equation, it will not be linear because one, you have a kt plus 1 over here you have a kt, and this is a function. So this will give you a non-linear curve. So the resource constraint over here is 1. It is dynamic. Okay, the fact that you have two different time subscripts now becomes very complicated because in the next few minutes when I go into optimization, you will realize that bulk of the complication comes only because of the two different time subscripts. Okay, I have to do a dynamic optimization because of this. So now this you have to put inside a box. Just put this inside a box. Can I erase the right hand side, students? In the online mode, can I erase the right side of the board?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I am here. Wherever I get stuck with the equations and their sign, please tell me. Yes, please come.
80 plus 1 minus 1 as equation that
This
part
should
that
be
you have-
plus kya? No.
go on, that part that you have box.
Put in the box.
Yeah, put in the box. What does it represent?
I am saying that the economy can have an output level which will depend upon the consumption level and the not investment, this is capital. So capital is what the resources of the economy, they will allow you to produce only that much. I'll come to that when we go deeper into the model.
New capital minus new capital is depreciated.
Yes, new capital is minus the
Capital is
depreciated capital that comes here. So now this is my resource constraint equation. Please put this inside a box. Remember, this is the most important equation which is going to give us what we are interested to get into. So this is the resource constraint equation. Now in this resource constraint equation, I can also look at consumption. From this equation, I can also know what is the consumption that is possible in this economy by writing it as Ct is equal to f of Kt minus Kt plus 1. Sorry, this goes this side, this is minus, this is plus. 1 minus delta Kt. Please tell me if the signs are right because I always make mistakes here. ठीक है ना? Yeah. Plus and minus both sides. I just exchanged it. I took the equations on the right hand side. Now having done this, I have got an expression for consumption. I have got an expression for consumption. In my previous class, I had started with an optimization problem. You remember, did I start? I had written LT. Can I just see where I stopped in my last lecture?
FT2 is minus
कहाँ पे? कहीं साइन मिस्टेक है क्या?
नहीं मैम
That's right.
ये प्लस है, ये इस साइड गया. बराबर. ठीक है ना?
last time we discussed about the limit of utility function only.
Yeah, I came with this production function only. I did not write the utility function. Optimization I did not start, na? No. हाँ, ठीक है. Then I am on the track. So now we have this thing. I have consumption over here. Now let us just think for 2 minutes. When we were doing the earlier model, the real business cycle model, we thought about a utility function. Okay, we thought about a utility function, a lifetime utility function, and then we went ahead with all our optimization over there. But what would a solo model do generally? A solo model will begin with a consumption equation or an expression for equation where it is not going to discount future consumptions or discount utility out of future consumption. It is going to give same rate everywhere. Solo model doesn't give any kind of, there is no rate of discount over there. So in that case, I have this expression over here. Suppose I want to see how do I get the maximum amount of consumption. What is the purpose of this entire macro model? We want to know what is the amount of consumption in the economy today, consumption tomorrow, what is the growth rate, output, all those things we are going to discuss. So if that is what I want to do, I will use this expression not in the form of a utility function. So suppose I do not So if I do not discount the utility from future consumption, okay, if that is the case, what will I do? I will just pick up this equation and see how this works. Okay, now let me bring this equation here and write it as Ct is equal to f of Kt minus Kt plus 1 plus 1 minus delta Kt. This was my equation. Okay. Now, if you remember in the Solow model, there were two parts. One is the steady state dynamics and the second one is the transitional dynamics. Again, you are looking for Greek alphabets. So we have this equation over here, and I am saying that we are not discounting future utility, that is one. And second, what I am trying to say is, I am looking at the steady state consumption. I am looking at the steady state values. See, this is very important for you to understand that your textbook would call it as steady state, or it will write it as long run. Steady state or long run equilibrium, both are the same. Somewhere after this, later on, you will come across something called as a transitional dynamics or dynamics of the model. That is the short run. Okay, so let us start with the steady state expression part. Now in this steady state, what happens is t tends to infinity. Okay, so we will say that we drop the t subscript because in the long run you have a constant value of consumption and constant value of capital. In that case, if I am dropping the t subscript from here, if I drop the t subscript, I will have c is equal to f of k minus k plus 1 minus delta k, which leaves me with f of k minus delta k is equal to c. Is it okay? Open the bracket and this is what you are going to get. What have I done? I have dropped the time subscript because I am looking at the steady state values. Okay, I am looking at the steady state values. So I have dropped the time subscript. Okay, and so in the steady state, what do I get? I get this as c is equal to f of k minus delta k. This is my expression. Can I erase the left side of the board now? Okay. Now we are here, consumption. This is our expression. This is very simple. I am here and I am just wanting to know when is the consumption going to be maximum. Why? Because I am not discounting future consumption. How will my consumption be the maximum? So if I differentiate, because there are only two factors which I have taken into consideration, capital and consumption. So capital will control consumption, right? So if I differentiate consumption with respect to what am I going to get? I'm going to get the first order derivative of my production function minus delta is equal to 0. What have I done? I have maximized my consumption function. Which means what? I should have this and d square maximization dy by dx should be equal to 0 and the second order derivative should be less than equal to 0. So this is my maximization. So when will my consumption be maximum? Ria, have you got wet? You can just make sure that you are not wet and don't sit in front of the AC. You'll fall sick. So following the maximization, you can come here. This is better. Following the maximization principle, I just differentiated my consumption with respect to capital. Now, what is the logic? Because I have a resource constraint, right? I have a resource constraint equation. My output will depend upon two things. One is how much I am consuming, and second, how much capital formation is happening in the economy. So, how do I maximize my consumption with respect to the existing capital? That is why I have differentiated this. And what have I got? This is my first equation. Okay, in my previous class, if you remember, we have already mentioned f of k is equal to what? Marginal product of capital, right? This is marginal product of capital. And what is delta? Delta is rate of depreciation. So delta is rate of depreciation, and delta is rate of depreciation, and this is marginal product of capital. So what have I got? When I maximized consumption, what have I got? Can I clear this part of the board? Right hand side. This is a very simple result which you must have studied when you were doing the theory of markets. I just am going into it from the point of view of growth theories. Yes. So what did I get in my first equation? Over here I have got this expression. The marginal product of capital should be equal to delta, and that is the point where consumption is going to be maximum. Which means if I try to plot this on a graph, I will have k which goes on the x-axis, and on the y-axis I will have, say for example, the marginal product. If I'm trying to plot it like this, my marginal productivity curve will look like this. You all know this is how we have studied in microeconomic theory. So let me plot my equation now. When capital is k hash, this is the notation of Dickens. When capital is equal to k hash, f dash k will be equal to delta. Okay, now you have to remember that this capital, this much amount of capital, if it is produced in the economy, then only consumption will be maximum. If the economy increases the capital beyond this, capital beyond this, consumption will fall. Why? You have a resource constraint. Right? We started with the resource constraint equation and we said when will consumption be maximum? So consumption will be maximum only when capital is such that its marginal productivity is equal equal to the rate of depreciation. Okay? If the capital is higher, marginal productivity will be lower, right? Yes or no? Why? Why?
Extra stock of capital.
As capital increases, output falls. The productivity falls. That's the basic rule that we have followed. And so, if my consumption has to be maximum, let me just denote it as C hash like this. For consumption to be C hash, capital has to be K hash. Now, this was the maximization principle. This was the maximization principle where I have simply taken my resource constraint equation and I have just tried to see when will my consumption be maximum. This is also called as the golden rule of capital accumulation. It is called as the golden rule of capital accumulation, where we say that when consumption is, it's a neoclassical belief, where we say that when consumption is at its maximum point, capital will be equal to K hash, or if capital is equal to K hash, consumption will be maximum. Either ways. It's not something that you are not aware of. It's nothing new that I've done. I just have put it into some kind of equations and very basic kind of derivation over here. Now, if I have to just plot this on a graph, okay, now the graph again is very simple. We'll just look at this graph. Now, because I am plotting it on a graph, let us look at it not just from the point of view of steady state. Let us see how the process goes on happening. So, if I am measuring K over here and F of K over here, which means what? Now, see the difference. On my y-axis, I have output, not marginal productivity of capital. So if it is output, I will be in a position to measure my consumption as well as capital, both. So if the rate of depreciation is delta, as capital increases, delta K will go like this. It's just simple this thing. Delta is a constant. As K goes on increasing, capital accumulation, depreciation is measured by delta K. So whatever is covered under depreciation. And the production function would be like this. So a usual production function. We all know production functions are denoted like this. So we can write this as f of k. Now you need to understand one thing. I'm measuring on the y-axis the production function, like the output produced by the production function. On the x-axis, I have k. So somewhere in the background there is consumption. Somewhere in the background, where is consumption? My steady state equation was f of k minus delta k was equal to c. Okay? Is it okay? And if I am not looking at the steady state, if I am looking at the transitional dynamics, it will be f of kt is equal to, sorry. So this will be f of kt minus delta k T will be equal to Ct plus delta Kt plus 1. This was the expression. What was the equation? This was the equation. I'll write it down again. Wait. So what was my equation? It was f of kt is equal to ct plus delta kt or minus delta plus delta kt plus 1 plus I think there is some mistake somewhere, no? This is all right. This was the expression. Yes? What was the equation?
We didn't do that delta T plus 1.
See, what does this mean? This is equal to plus kt plus 1 minus kt over here. So if I take this minus delta, right? This is how it was. So what I did is I have kept it now with delta kt. Okay? Why? Because I want to show it over here in this expression. Is it okay, students? What is the confusion? Why am I finding so many blank expressions? Just solve it, take the resource constraint equation and see whether it comes like this. Because if I have this, if I take this to the left hand side, I will be left with Ct plus change in capital. Okay? Everybody? What is your confusion? You look very confused. Yeah, any problem? Got it now? Sorted? Yeah. So now when I have got this expression over here, let me erase this part at least. Yeah. So this is my expression which I have used in this form. Okay. Why do I need it in this form? Because in my this diagram I have f of k and I have delta k. Right? So if I am subtracting f of k minus delta k, I should be left with ct plus delta kt plus 1. Right? What will happen? Suppose this is the peak. This is the peak point. At this point, what will happen? Delta kt plus 1 should be equal to 0. Why? Despite having a graph in the background, I am making such horrible lines. There is a straight line over here. What is k hash over here talking about?
Maximum.
Consumption is maximum. If consumption is maximum, change in capital should be equal to 0. Because the economy has reached the golden rule point. Okay? So in the short run dynamics, this will become 0 only at this point. Now if I want to show this, this is a tangent to the production function. It has become a secant, but yeah. This is a tangent to the production function. So what will this angle be equal to? At the point of maximum, I have drawn a tangent. Maximum of the production function or maximum of the consumption. See, beyond this, the production function is going down. Returns are falling. So at the point of maxima, I have drawn a tangent. What should this angle be equal to? कैसे 45 होगा? I don't know 45 होगा कि 95 होगा कि what होगा. 95 तो होगा ही नहीं, but मुझे in terms of symbols चाहिए. I don't want it in terms of angles. What should it be equal to? Come on, students, you'll know it. Preet is looking at Sharat. And I know he knows the answer.
कौन से point पे? Maximum point.
सोच के देखो मैं क्या पूछ रही हूँ. He knows the answer. He just wants you all to give it. It's very basic. किसी भी angle को हम अगर एक tangent draw करते हैं, what is that in terms of differentiation? It is dy by dx at that point, no? What is that? We have done it, no? So what should this be equal to? Maximize किया था ना हमने? Marginal productivity हुआ ना वो उस point का? So what should that be equal to? Delta. The angle is delta here. Okay. Now just go back to what we were talking about. This is the point where I will say consumption is C hash, okay, and delta KT plus 1 is equal to 0. We assume, because we are assuming that beyond this point the economy is not going to create capital because consumption will fall. Now this expression is in terms of an imagination where we are saying that consumption today and consumption tomorrow are of equal weight. I am not saying that tomorrow's consumption has lower weight, still lower, that beta raised to S I am not here. And that's the time when I am here. So my expression says F dash K is equal to delta is the point which determines this K hash and therefore the C hash. Okay, and therefore the C hash. Now this point, if you want to see, what is this going to give you? This much. It will be f of k hash minus delta k. Is it okay? Is it okay? Or I am wrong? I can be wrong. You have to tell me whether I am right or wrong. I have made a mistake and nobody is pointing out. Why? नहीं, मैंने mistake ये किया है. Just see this. It should have been only delta k. This point, oh God. This point. How much? This much. Okay. Okay. Now I don't want to get into the details of this dynamics. Still, I don't go into the optimum solution. Okay. I have to compare these two. So for now, you just have to remember that when I am having this golden rule where I am not discounting future consumptions or future utilities, I am just assuming that they are also getting the same rate. That means if I am living for 20 years on from today, on the 20th year also, my consumption, whatever I am going to consume, I am giving it the same rate as today, which is not right. No, my pattern, tastes, and preferences will change. So this was the original model, and so we came up with the optimization equation. So when I am optimizing, how it is different and why the economy should evaluate based on optimization, we will come to it in the next few minutes. Have you all taken it down? Can I just move ahead? Take down these graphs and let me know if I can clear the board. And if there are questions, I really want to answer. Please ask, because I know that this is something that I have picked up from your past understanding, and I'm just trying to talk about certain things which you are like lost. Like I can see those expressions. If there's anything that you want to ask, please ask. No questions? Nobody? Sure? It's so clear? Okay, so I'll erase this part. Now this is taken down. It's the golden rule solution. Why golden rule solution? In this solution, see tomorrow, the consumption of tomorrow has not been discounted. You have to remember this. Now I'll erase the whole of it. Okay. So now let me get into the optimization part now. Again, the same kind of utility functions and resource constraints and all those things. So I will go in for the optimum solution. I'm writing it as OS. Okay. Now this is the portion that I'm doing today is partly from Wickens, and a little bit you have to go through any textbook on growth, macroeconomic textbook. I'm looking at Ashimolu, but you don't get into that. It's very complicated. You can look at Barrow Salai Martin. You all have access to it. You have Barrow Salai Martin, economic growth.
That's also complete.
Barrow Salai Martin. So which book did you refer for? Devraj? Just see that for solo model. Just go through it for solo model once. I'm not getting into solo model. Only thing is I want to show you how it is good to have an optimization thing. So you don't have to get into the intricacies of what solo model is talking about, transitional dynamics or steady state values. You just have to know in general that over there consumption was not discounted. Future consumption was not discounted. Now I am coming back to my original story where I said I have two sectors, the household and the firm. Okay, I have a household and a firm, and now I will again go back to my story of consumption. So if I have to take any decision with respect to my household with the new classical belief system means prices are given, wages are given, there is perfect competition in the market, whether it is product or factor market, all those assumptions we are taking into consideration. As of now, I'm thinking of an economy where there is no external sector. I'm also saying that there is a central planner who makes you or who forces you to take up certain consumption decisions, and it is like totally like controlled this thing. Everybody behaves in the same manner, so it's a representative. You can call it a representative agent model, you can call it the basic new classical model, whatever, different ways of calling it, but primarily we are going to continue with the optimization part. So if I have this household, and in the previous case also I was looking at like what is the best thing about like how do I decide my consumption in the economy. There also the question was that. Here also my question is how should my consumption be determined. So what I do is I take this household and I say that there will be a utility function determined as CT. Okay. Now this utility function of mine will give me the utility out of the consumption in the current time period. CT. Okay. But I am not talking in terms of today only. I am talking about an infinitely lived household, which means T tends to infinity. As I told in my previous class also, when I have an infinitely lived household, students, Hydra is a good book. I'll do one thing. I'll get it from the reference room and I'll see which portion of it can be given to you all. I think that will give a lot of economics related content for these expressions. Please remind me if I forget. Tomorrow, after tomorrow's class, I'll just get that issue. So if I'm talking about the infinitely lived household and I'm saying T is tending to infinity, I will say that if I'm getting a consumption, like my consumption is CT plus 1 in the next time period, I will definitely want to discount my consumption for the next time period. But what is the rate of discount? This is beta. Now, these macroeconomic theories are based on human psychology. Human psychology, there are two case scenarios. One is there are these households who are earning today, consuming today, and then earning tomorrow, then consuming tomorrow, which means they cannot save. There are some of these households which cannot save. So those households belong to a different category, and there will be some households who would earn today, save for tomorrow, earn today, save, consume a bit, and save for tomorrow. Yeah, so when that is the kind of psyche, I will just look at assuming that our country is a reasonably, this economy is a reasonably advanced kind of an economy where people can save for the rainy day, and that's the reason why for the next time period it will be this. Okay, but what am I doing? Today I am looking at all the possibilities of my utility. So let me say that VT is the present value of all the future consumptions that I am going to have. VT is the present value of the utility derived, sorry. VT is the present value of all the future consumption. So this I can write it as equal to T is equal to, not T is equal to, I have to have an S, no? So I will put it as ET, S is equal to 0 to infinity, beta raised to S, U CT plus S. So this is my household's utility function. Okay, this is the utility function of my household, and you are looking at the present value. Okay, now let me just make one clarification over here, that your textbook, if you see Wickens, there is no expectations operator over here. Sometimes some textbooks just leave it, but it is safe because you will never be able to tell the exact value of consumption in the next time period. So it is expected value only. We play with expectations or forecasted values when we do lifetime or infinite horizon models. So I have included this ET. It's okay if you don't include, I don't mind, because I know that it is expected only. Now over here, this beta, it's very important for you to remember. How do I get this rate of discount? So there is something called as intertemporal substitution, elasticity of substitution. which means what? Within different time periods, I substitute my consumption, intertemporal, this time, next time. So when I'm saying that today I will have only, suppose I have a salary of 1,000 rupees, I will have only 400 rupees ka consumption and 600 rupees I am keeping for tomorrow. My substitution will depend upon how much income I am earning, one, okay, in which income bracket I belong to. Suppose I am very poor. Suppose I am very poor and I am a daily wager. So what I earn today, I will eat it, and tomorrow again I have to go and work for the entire day. And in that case, an intertemporal substitution becomes equal to zero. Okay, intertemporal substitution becomes equal to zero. So we make a very important assumption that this beta, this rate of discount is equal to 1 upon 1 plus theta. Now this theta is what? It is that intertemporal substitution. Okay? The text doesn't talk about what theta is. Your Wickens will not discuss it, but it actually comes down to the elasticity of intertemporal substitution. When you deal with macroeconomic data, it actually comes down to elasticity of intertemporal substitution. Okay? So we make a very important assumption over here that theta has to be greater than 0. If theta is not greater than 0, what will beta be equal to? Yeah, 1. Beta will be equal to 1, so we go back to the golden rule. Okay? And if theta is greater than 0, then only I will substitute. If theta is equal to 0, I will not substitute my current consumption and tomorrow's consumption. Very important, you should always know this. This part is very important. Okay? So, I have done this, and then I also have beta has to be within this range. This we have written in the previous module also. So last time when I was doing it, I have mentioned this, that I will tell you what is the relevance of this theta. Now that you are understanding that we are looking at consumption today and tomorrow and day after tomorrow. So when you are looking at smoothing your consumption, you are also weighing your future consumptions in such a way that the last consumption gets the lowest weight and the current consumption gets the highest weight. And that's the reason why my beta has to lie within the range 0 and 1. Okay, only then beta raised to some value will go on making a smaller value. The weights will go on becoming smaller. Now, once I have this expression, we follow the usual rules. Marginal utility is positive initially, and then it starts diminishing. Theory, your micro theory. Okay. Then I take the first order derivative of your utility function. I will get what? I will get the marginal utility, right? So marginal utility, what is the property of marginal utility? As you increase consumption, the utility increases, but at a diminishing rate. And after a point, it starts falling, right? So this is very important. Now, if you can see this expression, I am not including the labor force. The labor is not here. Why? Because I am not interested in the intratemporal choice of the output now. I am interested in only the intertemporal, so I have not included. So whether it is my utility function or it is my budget constraint, it will always depend upon what is my final intention. But in the utility function, we will always have real variables. Now suppose if there is this very important thing, this is to come back to Sharad's question in the last lecture when he had asked me why bonds have not been included, and I said that's a nominal variable. So when you have, suppose I want to include bonds, then I have to get into the purchasing power of those bonds. So we divide it with the price index and then it enters into the utility function. That doesn't happen in this case because it has a completely different, it goes into the theory of financial markets. So I can also include money because I can be a person who has lot of money. Money will also give me utility, right? So money also, if I have to introduce into my utility function, it has to be a real variable. So I will divide it with PT plus whatever the PT, and then it will enter into the utility function, depending upon what is my final intention. So having done this background, uh, we'll come back to the next step, that is looking out for the resource constraint. I have already discussed about the resource constraint. I have already written the resource constraint equation. What is the resource constraint equation? F of Kt is equal to Ct plus Kt plus 1 right? Now, because my utility function is a lifetime infinite horizon utility function, I will write my resource constraint also in terms of T plus S. So what does it become? It will be F of Kt plus S minus Ct plus S minus Kt plus S minus 1 plus 1 minus delta okay. I have brought it to the left hand side. So last time when we were doing the earlier model, I was talking about a household and a household's income and expenditure, right? Now I am doing it in terms of an economy and its physical infrastructure. So the constraint to consumption comes from how much capital is there in the economy and how much production. Okay, now you can see that my final purpose is to determine the consumption, determine the growth rate. So my resource constraint equation is also in terms of why growth rate is very important. Like for growth rate, investment has to happen. I don't want to use it in terms of investment, I want to use it in terms of physical infrastructure. And so I have used capital over here. So this is my resource constraint equation. So that was budget constraint, this is resource constraint. Okay, now I want to optimize it. It has to be a dynamic optimization problem. So this will be LT will be equal to expected value of beta raised to S. Now can I erase this part? I need a larger span. Right hand side. I have made a mistake. This should have been plus. Okay? Is this okay, students? What have I done? This is my objective function. Okay? And this is my constraint. It's a dynamic optimization problem. Okay? It's a dynamic optimization problem. I have an objective function which is given by my utility function, lifetime utility function, and the lifetime resource constraint equation is given. So if I want to maximize this with respect to Ct plus S and Kt plus S. I'm just maximizing it with respect to what I want to maximize it. So if that is the case, what should I get as the FOCs? Now you have to remember that there is something called as the no Ponzi gain condition. No Ponzi gain condition and the transversality condition of dynamic optimization are the same. So in a layman's language, in terms of an economist, I would say that the households will consume only that much which they can repay. They cannot leave debt or they cannot leave property for future generations. It's like whatever is produced is consumed during the life. No Ponzi game. So it's not like I will borrow and then leave it for future generation. You have all this Ricardian equivalence theorem and all those things which are there, which eventually come from that from violation of that equation. So if I have this equation, now can you all find out the derivative with respect to Ct plus S? So what will this be equal to? Beta raised to S Q dash Ct plus S. I have a consumption here also. So I will have minus lambda T plus S is equal to 0. Right? What will happen when I differentiate with respect to Kt plus S? Now you are looking into Greek alphabets. What's his name? Please सामने देखो.
Oh, sorry. My father was telling me I feel there is something like that.
You can take the call. Go. You don't have to get stuck. See, I'll tell you what. Don't think that if you take a call, go outside. Please keep going every day. I don't say anything. Please must be thinking today, ma'am is just teasing me. But the thing is that I'm just giving an example. It's totally okay if you all have to take calls, but please go out and take the call. Because I know it's raining, they may be worried. There can be multiple things that can be there. Even if it's not raining and you have a phone call, I really don't get into all those things. But don't do it in the class. Okay? Don't do it inside the class. Okay? Yeah.
Why is there a minus?
Did I make a mistake? Because there is a minus here, no? See, I did not, because I have space crunch, there is space crunch, I have differentiated it directly. Technically, what should have happened? I should have multiplied and then written the summation operator and done it. Is there anything else? Convinced? Can you all differentiate it with respect to Kt plus S and tell me what is the answer? Kt plus S. Anybody who's done it? Anybody who's done it? Yes, Ria, you have the answer. It's okay even if you are wrong. I really don't mind if you are wrong. I'm very happy if you are right. And if you tell me something, I'm still happier because then I learn. So all the three versions are acceptable to me, but keeping quiet is not acceptable. What's the answer, Ria? What have you got? Let me come and see if you are. You're very close to it. Just do it properly. Just take the expression. You're close to it. Have you done it? No. Anybody who's done it? I'll ask the students who are online. Online students, anybody who's done the derivative with respect to kt plus 1, kt plus s?
Ma'am,
Yeah, forum, just give me 5 minutes, I'll get back to you. Just give me 5 minutes. I'll see the notebooks here and then I'm coming back to you. Okay, forum?
okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Forum, can you give the answer? What have you got?
Yes, ma'am. So, I mean, I might be wrong, but I think it's lambda t plus s into f kt plus s.
Huh.
Then it might be lambda t plus s into bracket 1 minus delta,
Huh.
and it will be lambda t plus s minus 1.
Excellent. One small mistake you made, and that is
Mhm.
this is with respect to k, so this will be f dash kt plus s,
Okay, understood.
right?
Yes,
So
yes.
you remember in the last class when we had bt plus s.
Hmm.
Okay, this is an infinite horizon. This thing, no? S is equal to 0. You remember? So I have a kt plus s. This is kt plus s plus 1. So when lambda will be t plus s minus 1, this would have been kt plus s. Right? Yes or no? So what should I get over here? I will get lambda t plus s into right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Forum. All of you followed, students who are in the online mode. Did you all follow what I did?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
During COVID times, no, when we used to have online class, students used to get up, log in and go off to sleep. So if I would ask this kind of a question, nobody would respond because nobody would even hear what I'm saying. So let me do one thing. This looks very congested. We'll write this again when I clear the board once again. So let me just clear off this part so that we write the FOCs clearly. I have to remove this part also. Okay. So this is the first FOC. It's a direct expression where I am getting beta raised to S okay. And in the second expression, I have all these lambda t plus S over here. So what I'll do is I'll write it as beta raised to S u dash Ct plus S. Is it okay? Everybody, is it okay? Any doubt? Okay? Yeah. So let me do some kind of this thing. Let me say that S is equal to 1. Okay? If S is equal to 1, I will have beta U transpose U dash Ct plus 1 into okay. Okay. Now if I take the whole of this to this side, what will I get? I will get U transpose Ct by what is this? This is for consumption of the equation. This is the consumption Euler equation. I will just go one step further. You can write it like this as consumption Euler equation. I clear off this part of the board. We'll explain it. Give me a minute. So this is what I have in the bracket over here. So I can write this as suppose this is the real return for capital. Then this is going to be equal to one. So I can write this as Now what have I done over here? Let me explain. Let me explain. So we have the marginal productivity theory in which we say that wage rate is what? Wage rate has to be equal to marginal productivity, the classical theory of wages, right? Which means what is wage? Wage is the return on capital invested, not wage rate, sorry, the interest rate. Sorry, very sorry over here. So what does capital get? Capital gets interest, right? So this is the marginal productivity theory of capital, where we say that the return is equal to its productivity. So if I call the gross return as small it plus 1, if I call the gross return as small it plus 1, then the gross return minus the rate of depreciation is the real return on capital. Okay? Gross return minus depreciation is the real return on capital. And so this bracket becomes the real return plus 1. Now let me interpret the Euler equation. Equation over here in terms of return. If you just see, do you remember we had said that the ratio of marginal utilities should be equal to the relative price, right? Now if I am foregoing my consumption in the current period, this is the real return that I am going to get, right? Real return that I am going to get for my capital which will be created because of the consumption, right? So the ratio of the marginal utilities of consumption between the period t and t plus 1 has to be equal to the real return on the right hand side. What did we have there? WT by PT, the real wage rate, right? So what is the indifference curve theory talking about? The indifference curve theory says that the ratio of the marginal utilities should be equal to the relative prices. Relative prices over there was the real price, real wage rate, right? Now over here I am saying that it is equal to the real return. So I've come back to the same expression in terms of marginal utilities and the resource constraint. Which means what? If I am sacrificing my current consumption, my future consumption will be equal, the utility out of my future consumption will be equal to that utility multiplied by whatever I have shifted for the next time period. Okay, consumption today versus consumption tomorrow. We'll get into details of this, further details of this in a bit. Give yourselves 2 minutes and see if you have followed one, the derivation, two, the economic interpretation, and why optimization. So 3 questions which I really need you, I want you all to answer when I am doing this. So in the exam I may ask, derive the optimum consumption of a consumer in a basic DSGE model. Now, I have not specified what is KT made up of. KT is technology, so it will have a shock component. I'm not showing the stochastic component right now. Okay, so it is a DSGE model only. If we say that, okay, it is deterministic, then it will be a dynamic general equilibrium model. Whichever way you want to take it, as of now, you can take it as a dynamic general equilibrium model. Is it clear till here, students?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I just had a small doubt.
Yeah.
So here in the utility, like the C that we are taking, it's the lower case C, right? It's per capita consumption that we are considering here,
We
right?
started with that only because I'm talking about a representative household forum.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Please ask if you have doubts. I'm giving you all 2-3 minutes. Think and ask. It's perfectly okay. If I can answer your questions, it would be great. If I don't have the answer, I will get back after finding out the answer. But please ask. Yes. This one. Yeah. This one. Okay. So if beta raised to s into u transpose ct plus s is equal to lambda t plus s, if I change the time subscript by one period backward, means s minus 1, what will it be? So it will be beta raised to s minus 1 u dash ct plus s minus 1 will be equal to lambda t plus s minus 1. So that I have substituted here because I had two time periods no, in the FOC, t plus s and t plus s minus 1. Got it?
Not then being like sacrificing your current consumption.
Why I am keeping for tomorrow. Huh. So see, I'll tell you what. It's a basic psychology of human beings. In fact, every living being, we we all try to save for the rainy day, right? We all try to save for whatever is possible. Like I may be able to, like if I am belonging to a very high income group, I'll save a major portion of whatever I'm earning, or if I am belonging to some middle income group, I'll save 50%, say 60%. Or if I'm even our maids who are coming, they also try to invest in some kinds of saving schemes and all. So what is the rationale? It's like today I'm working, today I'm healthy, I'm earning, so I'm consuming. But if I'm not thinking about tomorrow, there's a possibility that I may not be able to earn, and so I have to keep something for tomorrow, right? But because I am in today, and today suddenly I am feeling that a friend of mine has got a new phone, and then I also have the option of thinking that next year or after 4 years, maybe I'll buy a newer version. I'll say, "Kal kisne dekha hai?" Okay, so I discount the tomorrow by, so I'll give priority to today. Given a choice, I'll give priority to today's consumption. I may be I may be a prudent consumer, but definitely if there is a choice between today and tomorrow, I will discount it at a lower weight, and today will be a higher priority. That's why beta raised to s. So suppose 20 years, like as Keynes said, what happened? No, na? As Keynes said, in the long run, we all die. We all are dead. So, if somebody comes and tells me, especially these life insurance people, or they come and say, आपको infra bond में invest करिए, 20 साल के बाद आपको इतना मिलेगा. Unless I have liabilities, I have children to take care of and all, why will I bother about 20 साल बाद का consumption? So I give what? Beta raised to some 20 wala value weight. So if beta is say 0.9 today, you multiply 0.920 times and you get some value which will be very low, some discounted at that rate. But I am worrying about tomorrow. I'm not thinking about today only, because then I can get into a situation where I have nothing to eat. Okay, so can I proceed further? Okay, the logic or the Euler equation, what does it say? It says that the basic principle that we use in indifference curve analysis, the ratio of marginal utilities should be equal to relative price. Okay, now in terms of relative price, we normally get a real rate, so here it is the real return. Okay, now we'll go deeper into this Euler equation. So this whiteboard was is a trial version for today only, no? Because I have to to have my one more login ID.
And I think it just, whatever you do today, you have to save it within 1 minute.
Pardon me?
And we have many different IDs now. You can use for multiple days.
So why did you not give me?
What?
You had the one more ID.
ID.
I have it, but I don't know the password. So I have to just check that because my I have a writing board and I use it for the classes online. So when I'm talking about this is tomorrow it rains. I don't know. I think it will settle down. I think it has settled down now, but 3 p.m. tide is bothering me for you all also. You all have to go far off. How far do you all stay? Very far. Huh? Yeah. Now you remember this situation. Okay, if it's raining crazily, okay, use the discretion and don't lecture at the rain. Even if the teacher takes the class, you will miss one class. But the kind of difficulties that people confront in Bombay, it's very crazy. And for us, we still close by. So we just don't want to lose classes only because we have so much pressure of completing so much. For me, I'm training. Today is my sixth lecture. It's my fifth lecture.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow is sixth. That's what. Tomorrow is the sixth lecture and my first module is not getting over tomorrow. So it's kind of like bothering me like crazy because the spillover will happen. Somebody else. So it's not about that. See, it's about passing on the information to the whole class. Like if I've been told that I have to finish this much syllabus, the responsibility is mine. I can set the paper, I can teach only 20% and ask questions from that and manage. But then I have a conscience, no? It will haunt me. So I don't know. I don't want sleepless nights. Okay. This is we've reached the consumption Euler equation, and we also have something that is an interpretation of consumption Euler equation. So when I'm talking about an infinite horizon thing, you all must be wondering always that you're talking about a household, you're not talking about individuals, then you're saying they live forever. This is kind of crazy. We cannot imagine what you're talking about and all those things. So let us just think that I am looking at VT such that this is made up of only current consumption and the discounted next period consumption. Okay, which means what I'm considering only 2 time periods, and I'm saying that because there is a no Ponzi condition, I'm saying that for t minus 1 everything is as it was, and beyond t plus 1 everything is as it was. That is t plus 2 onwards. Okay, but since I have consumption in time period t, I have a resource constraint which goes into 2 time periods. When I'm considering the resource constraint, I will say that any change dkt, any change in kt which will come from which period? Kt minus 1. Why? Because kt is at the beginning of t. So it was formed in the last time period. So dkt will be equal to 0, change in consumption, or I will also say that dkt plus 2 is equal to 0. Okay, and I will say dct Ct minus 1 is equal to 0. I'm not talking about this change in consumption. I'm not talking about, I'm not worried about anything beyond t and t plus 1. But when I'm considering t and t plus 1, what happens is the capital goes into t plus 2 over there and here it is t. So when it is capital with t, it was formed in t minus 1. So dt will be equal to 0 and t plus 2 will be equal to 0. I am only interested in the only part which is not going to be equal to 0 is dkt plus 1. Why? Because between t and t plus 1 it is dkt plus 1 only which comes into picture. Okay, so even if I am talking about an infinite horizon, let me see the dynamics of consumption between period t and t plus 1. Any other change is not. So what is happening between t and t plus 1? My change in lifetime utility is the same. It is not changing. That means I am also assuming that dvt is equal to 0. Got it? I am saying that what I am consuming or whatever is the change in t plus 1 has been between t and t plus 1. And there is no change in anything before that, anything after that. So the change in lifetime of utility is 0. Because it's like present value of lifetime utility. Okay, I am saying everything else remaining the same. I am just picking up a slice between t and t plus 1. Picking up a slice between t and t plus 1. Why blank expression, Ria? What is your question? kt कैसे 0 हुआ? Vt is 0 because I did not say Vt is 0. I said dVt. Change in Vt. See, when I am talking about 50 years, okay, I am talking about 50 years. In the 25th year, some change happened and it got corrected in 26th year. So what is the change in my total this thing? 0. Got it? Okay. So if I have this expression over here, can I delete this much part? You all have taken it down, no? Yes. One second. Yes.
There is no change before and after t and t plus 1.
I am saying there is a change. Yeah, there is a change between t and t plus 1 prior and post multiplication.
So there you wrote d bracket open ct minus 1 is equal to 0. You should get d plus or d.
What I wrote?
d ct minus 1 is equal to 0.
Because t minus 1 the period we are not considering. Right? Only with respect to capital you need to understand capital is at the beginning of the period. That's why kt, change in kt also goes to t minus 1 period. Okay? Followed everybody? I'll leave you all in another 5 minutes. Please focus for some time. I'll just leave you all. I just need to complete this much because I have lots to cover. Okay? Now this is what I'm looking at. Which means what, suppose there is some change in consumption in current period and next current period. That means between this thing. So I just want to know what is going to be the dynamics. Okay? So I will take a total derivative of this, which will give me u dash ct dct plus beta u dash ct plus 1 dct. See, why is it equal to 0? Why is the right hand side equal to 0?
Because we assume that the change in lifetime utility is 0.
Exactly. Exactly. Because we assumed that dVt is equal to 0. I took the total derivative. Total derivatives, you know, no? Every part of the equation is differentiated with respect to its own uh, variables. Yeah. So now, if this is the case, I have, suppose I want to know due to some change in the current situation, what is the change in consumption in the next time period. So I am really interested to know what is dCt plus 1. So this will be, let me rearrange this. This is beta mu dash Ct plus 1 is equal to minus u dash Ct dCt. Now please see this expression very carefully. See this expression very carefully. This part is the utility that I am going to get out of the consumption in t plus 1. Right? It's the discounted utility. Okay? And this is the change in consumption from the previous period. Right? Now this part, left hand side, is possible when I reduce my consumption in the current period. I reduce my utility by the amount dCt into the utility in the current period. Is it clear, students? Today's loss is tomorrow's gain. But tomorrow's gain is discounted utility. So, because I am saying that nothing has changed between in the entire time period, I am saying today what I am losing, tomorrow I am gaining. It's just like, you know, you save in your pension account and when you retire, you consume it. So today's loss is tomorrow's gain. That way. Now, so what is dCt? What is the change in consumption? dCt plus 1 will be equal to minus u dash Ct. Put this inside a box. Put this inside a box because this is very important. Look at this expression. I could have written this as dCt plus 1 divided by dCt. Right? So if I write it like that, what do I get? Right hand side will be what? dCt plus 1 upon dCt will be what? Yes, what is it?
Change in Ct plus 1?
Pardon? What did
Can you
you?
repeat the question? No,
I
I mean, I guess
I
huh.
said, just see the board. I have dCt plus 1 is equal to the right hand side. Okay.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
if I bring this dCt over here,
Hmm.
so what do I get on the right hand side? What is it? Or if I ask you what
Now, is it the
is dCt plus 1 upon dCt, what is it?
second order derivative?
Current
क्या है बताओ?
It's the ratio of marginal utilities, ma'am.
Pardon?
What we got earlier. It's the ratio of marginal utilities of current consumption, like time period T and T plus 1. What we
Yeah.
got earlier
Yes.
as the rate of return.
Yes. So if you link it to micro theory, where were you getting this ratio of marginal utilities?
Um,
change in
Hmm?
consumption change.
So what will this be? What think? I don't know. I don't think you know the answer. I'm just wanting you to make a guess. Is this not the slope of the indifference curve, intertemporal consumptions indifference curve? Suppose I will have this like this. What happened? It's not erasing. Now the board is also carrying like this. Okay, let me just see if I can show something. Yeah, this is it. Suppose I measure consumption in the next time period on the y-axis and consumption in the current axis on the current period and on the x-axis, then I will have an intertemporal indifference curve like this. Okay, where I have V T is equal to UCT plus beta U. No, it's not writing. This will not erase. This comes here. Isn't it? Isn't it an indifference curve? Intertemporal indifference curve. So if I am saying dct plus 1 divided by dct, what is it? The slope of the intertemporal indifference curve? Yes? Somebody is joining now. Okay. So what have I got over here? I have got the slope of the indifference curve. But I want to keep this expression only in this form dct plus 1 because I want to know what is the change in consumption in the current period. Is it okay? Can I erase this? Online students, can I erase clean the board?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
This part is not taking. Okay, so can we look at consumption independently? No. I showed you the indifference curve. Again, there is a phone and a messaging. Why are you all doing this, students? Don't do this continuously. We've done we've made the indifference curve. Now there is a constraint, no? There is a resource constraint. We have to see the resource constraint equation. What was the equation? So take the total derivative of this. We have two equations. Why? Because we have t plus 1 also. So if I take the total derivative of the first expression, this is going to give me what? Is it okay? I have taken the total derivative of the resource constraint equation. One last bit and then I'll leave you all. Just have some patience and just take down. Now in this equation, in the beginning only we said dkt is equal to 0. Okay? And we also said, so this is also equal to 0. Right? Over here we have said this is equal to 0. Okay? So what do I get? From here I get dct is equal to minus dkt plus 1, or to be correct, if I want to write it in the correct fashion in this expression, I will want to write it as what is this implying? It is implying that if I reduce my consumption by dct, the next time period will begin with a capital which will be equal to kt plus 1. It will result in capital formation equal to kt plus 1. This is the first equation. Now if I substitute this into the second expression, what do I get? This will be, over here I will have minus dct, I will replace it, and over here also I will have minus dct. So what do you get over here? Again, if I want to write this equation in terms of dct plus 1, what should this be equal to? This will be equal to yes? Yes? So because of the increase in consumption, because I reduced my consumption in the current period, from the consumption side, in the next time period, my change in consumption was this much. From the consumption side. Now from the resource constraint side, because I reduced my consumption by dct in time period t, my current consumption increased by this amount. There is a minus sign over here. This minus sign implies what? Do I have a minus sign? Have I made a sign error? This is here, this goes here. You replace dkt by minus dct. So there will be a minus sign here. Okay? Now just look at this. This dct plus 1 divided by dct is what? It is the slope of the production possibility, intertemporal production possibility curve. I'll come to that in the next class. There also, from the resource constraint side, I have got that. Isn't it? From the resource constraint side, I have got. Now equate these two. Equate this and this. What are you getting? Tell me. This you got from the resource constraint side. This you got from your utility function. Equate the two and tell me what have you got. What have you got? Anybody who can tell me what is the answer? Do you find it familiar?
Ma'am,
Yes.
is it the MRS is equal to the slope of the budget?
We have
Like
come back
the,
to the consumption Euler equation.
yeah.
Right. We have come back to the consumption Euler equation. I think I will stop over here. Students who are in the online class, I will stop here. If you have any doubts, please ask me. Anybody who has any doubt? No?
No doubts, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm just quitting this meeting and y'all can also leave.